letter from the Gantry.
Thank you, Neil. As always, a powerful introduction. I'll try to make it a powerful subject as well. I accept it's probably a generational thing, but I always get a tingle of anticipation at the arrival of the third round of the FA Cup. It used to be called the best weekend in the English football calendar, when the big boys joined those who battled through the earlier rounds. The build-up to it was full of changes of preparation. Teams went to a seaside hotel, trained on a beach. That were popular alternatives to the regular routines, inviting a celebrity into the camp and giving it some publicity, or a hypnotist, anything to emphasise the special nature of the upcoming cup tie. It used to be a full week of build-up after the festive fixtures, particularly before New Year's Day became a public holiday in England, which it wasn't for the first 30 years of my life. Once it was added to the football calendar, football took the opportunity to put on a full set of games on January the 1st and follow the example of Scotland. It didn't happen this year, incidentally, because of the way the other matches have been scheduled in a different year. And this year it's no longer the third round of the FA Cup on the first weekend in January, which has been really in all my lifetime. And the excitement of earning a money-spinning replay for the lesser lights, that's also gone from the entire competition proper, starting in the first round proper. So fewer fixtures, less publicity. It is the world's oldest football competition, and those who've been messing it about should hang their heads in shame. Happily, its image around the world has been less tarnished. The FA Cup still has its magic in far-flung football outposts where a higher value is placed upon tradition. It also retains its sense of democracy. Those who set out in late summer in the preliminary and qualifying rounds can say they have played in the FA Cup with authenticity. At a non-league club in my day, you were accepted when you were offered player registration for that particular division. But to be eligible to play in the FA Cup, there was another form, not handed out to everyone in the squad. I can still recall the buzz of excitement when one of those pieces of paper was pushed my way to sign. The respect for the FA Cup is still huge in the non-league scene. The headliners who make real progress are living out the dream for all the part-timers who never get that far, like Maidstone United last season, who won at Ipswich Town no less. Their softly spoken manager, George Elokobi, once scored a Premier League goal for Wolves in a win against Manchester United. But I bet he got a bigger thrill seeing his team from the sixth tier of English football interrupt what turned out to be a promotion season at Portman Road. As a commentator, I've been lucky enough to be on the right gantry at the right time, but those structures, often hastily built, exposed platforms, reach via a rickety ladder, rung slippery from the wet of winter, with the downward journey more hazardous than the climb, undertaken with numb hands and frozen feet. Newport County at one of their temporary homes, and Nuneaton Borough come to mind in particular in the lack of safety stakes. But we commentators will take plenty of risks to get to a great viewpoint. But is the danger to the rich and famous on the pitch, which is still the core of the FA Cup? Back in 1980, Manchester City had the colourful Malcolm Allison as manager, the legendary keeper Joe Corrigan in goal, and in midfield, Steve Daly, at the time the most expensive signing in English football. Their third round tie sent them to Halifax Town of the old 4th Division, League 2 now. It remains one of the biggest upsets I've ever commentated on. On reflection, the pitch was unplayable, but the presence of TV cameras was a much rarer event back then. I think the officials perhaps wanted some screen time. Halifax won 1-0. The goal scored by Paul Hendry to national acclaim. At the time, Paul had a 2-year-old son, Lee Hendry, who would go on to play in an FA Cup final, no less, for Aston Villa, and with whom I've shared commentaries at Sky Sports. His dad's FA Cup third-round winner against Manchester City was discussed and will be discussed every time we meet. You do also remember the games which didn't go ahead. In January 1991, the attempt to settle a third-round tie between Nottingham Forest and Crystal Palace was foiled on 3 separate occasions, with 3 different weather problems. I can't recall the exact order, but it was fog, frost and puddles on the City Ground pitch. Forest eventually got through, knocking out the losing finalists the previous season, and went on to be their successors, losing to Spurs at Wembley. It was the closest the great Brian Clough, who won virtually everything else, came to being successful in the FA Cup. I commentated on Forest's recent win at Wolves on the 50th anniversary of Brian's appointment. I was also at his first game a couple of days after that appointment. It was a third-round FA Cup tie, a replay. Forest were languishing in the second division, the Championship nowadays. At White Hart Lane against Spurs, the Cup Kings of the day. Forest won 1-0. Cloughie was off to a flyer. For me, it's now 6 years since my luckiest day at this stage of the football calendar. As assistant manager, I was in the home dugout at the club I've supported all my life. Woking's reward for coming through 5 qualifying rounds, a home tie with Watford. If losing 2-0 can be part of a perfect day, this was it. A decent display against Premier League opposition. Fantastic camaraderie between the two clubs, and being told, "Martin, behave," by Troy Deeney when I appealed too enthusiastically for a throw-in that clearly wasn't ours. Troy came off the bench to score within moments of his rival, actually. Watford went on to the final, with lots of Woking backing along the way, and we won promotion to the National League. Happy days when the joy started in January.